A deadly virus wipes out most of humanity, and vampires swoop in to enslave the survivors as living blood banks. For years, Yūichirō Hyakuya and his orphan friends suffer under their rule, until he and his best friend Mikaela attempt a daring escape. It ends in tragedy. Yūichirō is the only survivor. Fueled by rage and revenge, he joins the Japanese Imperial Demon Army, humanity's last hope against the vampires. But this war isn't just about swinging swords. Dark secrets and painful truths await. One thing certain, Yūichirō won't stop until every last vampire is dead. We open on a city at night, all lit up and bustling with life. People are just vibing, walking around, going about their business when, boom, one guy drops, then another. Suddenly, chaos erupts. Planes crash, cars collide, and before anyone can even process what's happening, society as we know it is basically over. Say goodbye to adulthood, folks, because they're all gone. Meanwhile, in another POV, Zex Doltrake is gearing up for some action, while Cruel Tepes, the vampire queen of fabulousness, is leading her blood-sucking squad through the ruins of Tokyo, looking way too pleased with herself. Back on the ground, a ragtag group of kids, led by Mikaela Hyakuya, are dashing through the streets, dodging whatever madness is unfolding. Yūichirō Hyakuya, our protagonist, stops dead in his tracks when he witnesses a man vomit blood and keel over. An ominous announcement was heard. Some mysterious voice blames humanity for being dumb enough to let a virus wipe them out, and basically declares, "Welp, you're all doomed." But hey, good news, kids under 13 are spared. Well, because that just means they're fresh meat for vampires. Speaking of which, back at the orphanage, Mika bursts into a room only to find their director lying there, not looking too great. Yu is told to keep the others calm. Before anyone can process what's happening, a vampire literally smashes through the window. As if things weren't bad enough, more vampires casually stroll in like they own the place, which, technically, they kind of do now. Fast forward to a highway covered in the kind of bloodbath you only see in zombie movies. A bunch of green trucks, packed with children, roll through the city. Yu and Mika are among the kids being carted off to their new lives as prime-grade human livestock. 4 years later, we're in the eerie, dystopian vampire city of Sanguin, where kids line up, waiting to confirm their identities. Mika and Yu, now seasoned survivors, move through the line, but their daily routine consists of, well, having their blood drained. Later, Yu, ever the rebel, refuses to drink the disgusting blood substitute stuff they're given. Mika, ever the peacemaker, tries to convince him to just go with the flow, but Yu is all, nah, not about that life. Things escalate when you see some vampires stepping on children for fun, and his temper gets the better of him. Next thing he knows, he's dangling over a ledge like a cat who miscalculated a jump. Just when it looks like he's about to become street pizza, in struts Farid Bathory, vampire noble and all-around smug jerk, who effortlessly diffuses the situation while also being creepily charming. Mika, suspiciously chummy with Farid, plays it cool, but Yu is giving major side-eye. Later, Yu broods on a rooftop, where Akane finds him and reminds him that they're all supposed to be family. Cue a flashback of Yu's tragic past, where his parents sucked and abandoned him. Mika, ever the optimist, had once extended a hand and promised they were his new family. That night, Mika sneaks back in after a fun evening with Farid, bringing stolen curry and a gun because that's how you prepare for a great escape. He lays out a plan to get them out of this nightmare city, and the kids are all in. Their escape starts off smooth, too smooth. They manage to dodge guards and finally see the exit. Freedom just within reach until Farid pops out like a final boss in a horror game. And then, in the most heart-wrenching sequence, he casually slaughters the orphans one by one, because of course he does. Mika tries to fight back, but Farid skewers him like a kebab. Yo, in full panic mode, grabs the stolen gun and manages to land a shot on Farid's smug face before making a desperate run for it. Covered in blood and sobbing, Yu stumbles into the snow, only to be greeted by Gurren Ichinos and his squad. Gurren, looking way too casual about this whole thing, tells Yu that he's just the kind of guinea pig they need to fight vampires. Yu, still shaking and broken, clings to him like a lost puppy, basically saying, "Sign me up." Yūichirō Hyakuya is haunted by the past. He remembers his Hyakuya orphan family being happy together in the vampire city until the memory shifts into a nightmare of them being slaughtered. The worst part? He had to leave Mika behind to die just so he could escape. Yeah, not exactly something you get over with therapy. Fast forward 4 years, and now 16-year-old Yu has been trained to fight. He's currently in a ruined human city, battling a giant monster called a Horseman of John. His comrades yell at him to retreat, but Yu does what Yu does best, completely ignores orders and charges in for the kill, because he has exactly one personality trait at this point: revenge. He takes down the monster but gets punished for disobedience by being sent to school. That's right, not a dungeon, not torture. During class, Yu is already over it and starts mumbling about how ridiculous this is, which earns him a scolding from the teacher. Instead of backing down, he welcomes suspension. But before he can enjoy his victory, a girl pokes him from behind. Enter Shino Ahagi, Yu's newly assigned babysitter, courtesy of Gurren Ichinos. She hands him a note from Gurren himself, basically telling him to behave and, most importantly, make a friend. Yu's response: crumple the note and throw it on the floor like a moody teenager. Speaking of Gurren, Yu remembers the night they met. After escaping the vampire city, Yu was barefoot, freezing, and filled with pure hatred when Gurren found him and asked, "So, you hate vampires?" Yu naturally gave him the duh response, and just like that, Gurren took him in. Ever since, Yu's been itching for a real fight, but for some reason, Gurren hasn't let him kill any vampires yet. Back in the present, school finally ends, and some students head out for ice cream. Shinoa, being the ever-so-patient guide to Yu's social dysfunction, tells him this is his chance to make a friend. Instead of listening, Yu grumbles about orders and dramatically crumples Gurren's note again. That's when he witnesses some classic school bullying. A kid named Yoichi gets shoved around by a jerk named Yamanaka, who demands that Yoichi buy him snacks. Yu initially ignores it, but when Shinoa calls him out, he immediately turns around to intervene. Yu tells Yamanaka to back off, which shifts the bully's attention from Yoichi to him. Shinoa warns Yu that beating up civilians will extend his army suspension. Yu's moment of heroism is immediately undercut when Yamanaka punches him straight in the face. So, in a truly unexpected twist, Yu ends up carrying drinks while Yoichi lugs around a giant bag of snacks. While they chat, Yoichi reveals his tragic backstory. His sister died protecting him from a vampire, and he wants to join the Moon Demon Company for revenge. The problem? He flunked the entrance exam. So, in a genius move, he tried to befriend Yamanaka, who claimed he was already in the army, hoping to use his connections for another shot. Hearing this, Yu gets ticked off and tells Yoichi that he's weak and would only be in the way. Before that insult can fully sink in, a massive explosion shakes a nearby building. Sirens blare as an alert rings out. An escaped vampire is on the loose. Shinoa tells Yu and Yoichi to get to safety while she contacts the Moon Demon Company. But Yu sees this as his moment. Instead of following orders, he sprints off to grab his sword and gun from his locker, ready to take matters into his own hands. As he runs, he accidentally steps on a cannon, which sprays Shinoa and Yoichi. Shinoa, now even more done with his nonsense, calls him an idiot. Inside the school, Yu finds the escaped vampire, and she is not looking great. Ribs showing. Eyes sunken, completely starving. She's about to drink the blood of a student when Yu jumps in. Deciding that he looks tastier, she changes targets and lunges at him. Turns out, even a weak vampire is still ridiculously strong and fast. She dodges all of Yu's sword attacks and counters with her claws. Meanwhile, Yamanaka is curled up on the ground, shaking in fear. When Yu tells him to save the girl, Yamanaka admits that he was lying the whole time. Just when things look bad, Yoichi rushes in and tackles the vampire from the side. She strikes at him, but Yu intercepts, and the battle continues. The vampire grabs Yu by the throat and dramatically leaps out the window with him. They crash through tree branches on the way down, but Yu manages to stab her in the stomach mid-fall. She compliments him, but is about to turn the fight around when Gurren and the Moon Demon Company finally show up. Gurren, being the overpowered badass he is, effortlessly pierces her heart with his cursed blade. The vampire dissolves into embers, and just like that, the fight is over. Yu, naturally, is annoyed because he wanted to be the one to finish her off. But before he can argue, Yoichi sees him, waves enthusiastically, and then immediately trips over a fence, tumbles down a hill, and full-body tackles Yu, hugging him tightly. Yoichi sobs about how worried he was. Yu, knocked out from the impact, has no choice but to just accept the hug. Shinoa, never missing a chance to mess with Yu, reminds Gurren that he did say Yu could join the Moon Demon Company if he made a friend. And well, here's Yoichi, emotional and definitely a friend. Gurren, completely baffled by this turn of events, has no choice but to let them both in. While unconscious, Yu has a dream where he sees Mika, Akane, and the rest of his Hyakuya family. They're all happy and tell him they're proud that he finally made a friend. Mika, in particular, tells him that revenge isn't everything and that they can finally stop worrying about him. As they walk away, Yu panics, reaching out and yelling for Mika to stay. Then he wakes up in a hospital bed. Yoichi, still sticking around, happily greets him, and Shinoa drops the final bombshell. Because Yoichi risked his life for Yu, the army accepted him too, meaning that both Yu and Yoichi are now officially members of the Moon Demon Company. Yu finally gets what he wanted, just not in the way he expected. Yamanaka, Yiji, and Shishido are up to no good in a restricted area. Because of course they are. Yiji, being that guy, tries to open a very obviously cursed door covered in spell tags. Yamanaka, for once in his life, makes a good decision and stops him. They walk away, crisis seemingly averted until Yiji glances back and sees the door creep open on its own. Meanwhile, up on the rooftop, Yu is experiencing something far scarier than a vampire attack romance. The girl he saved from that runaway vampire thanks him the old-fashioned way by shoving a love letter into his hands before sprinting off like she just committed a crime. Yu, completely bewildered, pockets the letter. Shinoa, who has seen everything, wastes no time teasing him about it. But then she gets all serious and drops some unexpected survival advice. Humanity is on the brink of extinction, so maybe you should, consider contributing to the population. To distract Yu from his emotional confusion, confusion. Shinoa decides it's time for show and tell, except instead of a pet or a cool rock, she whips out her cursed gear, Shikama Doji. And let me tell you, this thing is not messing around. It's a giant scythe with spirit-based energy that can straight up manifest in front of her. Yu, naturally, wants one. Actually, he wants hers. When she refuses, he does the logical thing, he attacks her. Big mistake. She completely wipes the floor with him in seconds, proving that cursed gear isn't just cool, it's ridiculously overpowered. Elsewhere, Yamanaka and Shishido, in a stunning turn of events, are now chasing Yoichi and begging to be his disciples. That's right, the same kid they bullied is now their last hope. Yu calls them out, asking if they even have a shred of pride left. Yamanaka swallows his ego and pleads because they need help. Turns out, their friend Yiji went into the Forbidden Chamber and never came back. Shinoa, ever the bearer of bad news, informs them that going in there means severe punishment, possibly even death. Her advice, forget about it. But because this group never listens to warnings, Yu, Shinoa, and Yoichi head to the chamber anyway. Shinoa warns Yu not to do anything stupid. Yu, obviously, does something stupid. He charges in and tries to grab the cursed gear, a badass axe that Yiji is clutching. The moment Yu touches the axe, his brain goes on a trip. Suddenly, he's back in Sanguinum, sitting with Mika, Akane, and his orphan family, all alive and well, acting like nothing ever happened. Sounds great, right? Wrong. Yu immediately feels off when he mentions that they died. Mika and the others casually confirm it and then ask him to avenge them. But Yu knows Mika too well. The real Mika wouldn't push for revenge. Realizing he's being played, Yu calls out the demon and demands it stop pretending to be his family. The illusion shatters, revealing the demon hiding within the weapon. Yu snaps out of it, waking up to find himself back in reality. Shinoa, utterly shook, realizes that Yu just brute forced his way out of a demonic possession through sheer willpower. That's not normal. She tells him that since he somehow managed that, she'll inform Gurren. If he's lucky, he might get into the elite training class even though it already started. Late enrollment has never looked so intense. Meanwhile, over in Sanguinum, a certain flamboyant vampire is still alive. Yep, Ferret, the unkillable menace, is strutting through the halls, singing Mika's name like he's in a musical. He makes his way to a mysterious figure in a vampire soldier uniform, casually dropping the bomb that Yu is alive and currently under the care of the Japanese Imperial Demon Army. The figure silently turns, draws his sword, and holds it to Ferret's throat. In the middle of a ruined city where humans live freely, meaning they aren't under the rule of blood-sucking vampires or the super strict Japanese Imperial Demon Army, a wild horseman of John appears. It immediately starts wreaking havoc. One poor girl trips and falls right into the danger zone, but before she can become Monster Chow, Mikaela Hyakuya swoops in like a brooding hero and slays the creature in record time. The crowd goes wild. Finally, someone strong enough to keep them safe from vampires except Mika is a vampire. Slightly awkward. Lekis, one of Mika's fellow vamps, casually comments on Mika's ridiculous power level, while the rescued girl offers up her blood as a thank you gift. Super sweet, right? Well, not for Mika, who just stares at her like, am I really about to do this? 4 years ago, right after Yu pulled off his great escape, the vampires showed up at the bloodbath that used to be a bunch of kids and found Ferret looking extra dead, courtesy of a well-placed bullet. But instead of taking a moment to be shocked, they immediately decide to finish off Mika. Before they can, Cruel Tepe struts onto the scene and shuts that down real fast. She dips her fingers into the literal pool of blood surrounding Mika, licks it, and turns her gaze to Ferret, who is totally alive. Cruel isn't buying his sob story about getting shot, since, let's be real, noble vampires are way too fast to get hit by bullets unless they want to be. She quickly figures out that Ferret planned all this to let the Seraphs escape, which is a major no-no in vampire politics. When Ferret tries to play his blackmail card, basically threatening to snitch, Cruel responds very maturely by yeeting him across the room, ripping off his arm and stomping on his throat. Ferret, now regretting his life choices, surrenders immediately. Once she's convinced he'll keep his mouth shut, Cruel turns her attention back to Mika and offers him a deal. Eternal life. Mika, still clinging to his humanity, refuses. Cruel smirks. Oh, buddy, you thought you had a choice? Without hesitation, she bites her own lip, drawing blood, and then full-on kisses him, sealing his fate as a vampire. The kiss isn't romantic. It's to muffle his screams as she forces the transformation on him. Because nothing says welcome to immortality like non-consensual vampire CPR. Meanwhile, back in the human world, Yu is starting his first training session for the Moon Demon Squad. But before that, he accidentally bumps into another student, which immediately escalates into a full-blown fight because apparently conflict resolution is not his strong suit. When Gurren introduces Yu, Yoichi, and Shinoa to the rest of the trainees, Yu makes it very clear that he has zero interest in making friends. Gurren, being Gurren, responds by smacking him in the head. Classic leadership. Yu then discovers that the guy he fought earlier is Shiho Kimizuki, and naturally, they start fighting again. Gurren, exhausted by this nonsense, turns to Shinoa and asks why they're still behaving like this when they were literally taught how to make friends. Then he knocks them both out for good measure. Later, Kimazuki privately begs Guren to give him a cursed weapon immediately because he desperately needs the benefits and medical care it would provide for his sick sister. Guren shuts that down, saying Kimazuki isn't ready to handle a demon. To drive the point home, he whips out his own cursed weapon and casually warns that if Kimazuki gets himself possessed, Guren will kill him. During their next exam, Shinoa snags Yūichi as her training partner, making sure Yu sees it happen. That leaves Yu and Kimazuki stuck as teammates against some training puppets. Unsurprisingly, their teamwork is atrocious, and they fail spectacularly. But before things can get worse, Sayuri, one of the supervisors, rushes in to tell Kimazuki that his sister is in critical condition. Kimazuki, torn between duty and family, insists on finishing the exam, but Yu of all people convinces him to go to her. After much arguing, Kimazuki finally rushes to his sister's side, dragging Yu along, since they're literally chained together. Despite failing the exam, Kimazuki actually thanks Yu for forcing him to prioritize his sister. Yu, in a rare moment of wisdom, tells him that failing some test or even the Moon Demon Squad doesn't matter as long as he keeps fighting to save her. And just like that, these two idiots actually start getting along. Meanwhile, over in Sanguem, the vampire nobles are freaking out. Humans are gathering, and that can only mean one thing: trouble. Mika and Farid stand by as Cruel officially declares war on the Japanese Imperial Demon Army. That's the end of the recap. Let us know if you want part 2 by leaving a comment in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to avoid being virgin forever. See you guys in the next video.